picture shows the hospital being constructed by the Nishiura brothers. This hospital was built because some of the Issei, especially those from Kumamoto-ken, felt a need for a hospital where you could have Japanese doctors speaking Japanese and having nurses or attendants who could speak Japanese. So they raised the money and they built this hospital, and they were able to get a Dr. Kuwabara. So therefore it was called the Kuwabara Hospital. Dr. Kuwabara did not have a California license, so he practiced under the auspices of
I know my dad's father, he was from Hiroshima area. He was doing lumber and he was doing fishing and all these different things before he got to Washington, where he decided to do oyster farming. Dad's family was at Tule Lake. They left the Puget Sound up in Washington State, and they lost their business. My grandfather raised oysters, and their family lived on a houseboat out in the Sound. They lost everything, and they were in Tule Lake. And my mother grew up in Hawaii, so she wasn't herself incarcerated, but her father was incarcerated at Sand Island for a year. He was a bit of a community leader, and they had a small store. So I think that's why he was one of the people singled out, because that seemed to be the men that were taken. I was actually born in Ames, Iowa, and that always seems to surprise people. And the reason why I was born there was because my parents, who met in New York, actually moved to Iowa because that was the first place my father could get a job. And he just had graduated from RCA trade school in television. And that was in the mid 1950s. So, not too long after the war. And so he had a really hard time. He was trying to get to the West Coast, but the closest he could get was Ames, Iowa. So that's where I was born until at the age of one, they finally did move back to California. And then I grew up in Lodi in the Central Valley. My father, he was working for Channel 13, KOVR in Stockton, and he was he was a cameraman and he was a broadcast specialist. I think I was quite a rambunctious little girl, and my mother was trying to find something to keep me occupied. She sent me to ballet, and I was terrible at that. And I had swimming lessons, and then finally she sent me to art lessons at 3. So I just took off drawing. I remember my first drawing was a cat, and I just loved art all the way since I was 3 years old. I went to Delta College for 2 years. That was when I finally decided I wasn't going to be in the sciences. And then when I went to San Jose State, I went for 2 years for my to get the graphic design degree. My first job, I worked for a printer, a research company, and then I went to Atari for about 7 years. I was making game boxes and manuals, and we had a really great department. I freelanced for a while, and then I did work for a small ad agency, and then I went to Intel. That was the last place I worked for 10 years. We were starting to work with all these stores that are no longer in existence, like CompuSay and Circuit City. Like these aren't even around anymore, right? I was really involved with just working, whatever, 60 hours a week or something. And then towards the end of working in high tech, I just thought, I cannot think of another way to express how fast a microprocessor is. I was just like, I was so I was so frustrated with it. So I decided to see what else was out there. Actually, the interesting thing was I went to this what you call a mystery school for 9 months to find myself. and at this mystery school, we studied different ways of meditating, different cultures. We did a lot of Native Americans processes or rituals like sweat lodges and vision quests and all these amazing things. And by the time I got done, I decided I wanted to be an artist, and I wanted to go back for my master's. I started researching schools, and I found JFK University, and they were in Berkeley at the time. They had a program that was on arts and consciousness. So it wasn't your typical program. It was supposed to be a 2-year process, but I stayed there for 5 years. I just loved it so much. Plus, I was working part-time. That's why I decided to work in community. They had 2 programs. They had a fine arts, Master of Fine Arts, and then they had Arts and Consciousness, MA. And that was really about working in community and working with people and using art as a healing process. So that's why a lot of my work actually has to do with transformation and presenting things in a way that people can maybe understand or learn something new. I think it was when I was at San Jose State, I discovered it. And I loved it because it was just something that I didn't grow up with, really. I think we had 1 or 2 little Japanese markets in Lodi. But to have a whole neighborhood and a whole street and a whole community, it was just like a little wonderland for me, and all the restaurants and the stores. And I just loved it there and would go there often. And it really opened my eyes to what being in a community of Asian Americans could be like. I missed a lot of the activist stuff that was going on for some reason. It just bypassed me. And I feel like I'm just catching up with a lot of that now, reading about it. And I feel like I missed out. I do. I feel like, oh, why was I not involved? Why did I not know what was going on? I don't know how I missed all these things. I just boggles my mind. I started going to some of their meetings and submitting my work to some of their shows and was recommended for some of their exhibits. It was a real great experience. It's such a wide range of people. I mean, they're different ages. So there's some people that act more as mentors, and there's younger people, and they're all, Southeast Asian to Japanese, Chinese, Filipinos. It's just such a wide group. We just recently went to Manzanar together, and we formed this group. We ended up calling ourselves Sansei Granddaughter's Journey is what we called our trip. We all went together and we did a ritual there, and it was really an amazing experience. And we ended up documenting the whole thing, and we made a film about it that recently just got shown at the Silicon Valley Asian American Film Festival. Well, I was actually a little surprised I got selected because I feel like I am really a dinosaur. Really, I'm I learned graphic design with an X-Acto knife. Okay, so I'm really I can do some Photoshop, and I fiddle around a bit, but I wouldn't say I'm a proficient. And the younger people, I just am blown away by what they're doing. And luckily, I got to hook up with Colin, who helped me quite a bit, because I said, here are my sketches, here's what I'm thinking. And he said, oh, you could do this or that. And that put my mind a little bit at ease. So I thought, okay, I think I could work with him or learn more myself. I said in my original proposal, I was like, this is what I'm thinking of doing, and I don't know what building to do. And Tom goes, well, what about the Issei Memorial Building? And so I started looking into it. And then I also knew about it because Dwayne's J-Town Community TV was there. And I had been over there and been in his office and had met some of the other people in that building. And I thought, this story needs to be told because there's so much history about it. And there's so many groups that have been involved having their office there. I should bring the story of this building out to the public so people understand the importance of it. It's really fascinating to be part of a project where we have all this opportunity to be educated and to go so deep into learning the history of a place. I really commend the committee and the advisors for taking that route.